This is another recipe for the guerrilla cooking series, going back to World War I, and this time it is from the German Imperial Army. Now, they published at least one pamphlet that has been found that was handed to the troops for giving them some ideas, some recipes to do in not just field kitchens, but also their mess kits in the trench. And this is one of those recipes. This is a traditional German recipe. The name for it is Himmel und Erde, heaven and earth. An easiest way to break it down for in the US is we'll call it German apple potatoes. Now with Himmel und Erde, heaven and earth, heaven is represented by the apple, and the earth, the potato. This is traditionally a mashed potatoes recipe. However, troops in the trenches probably did not mash it up. That's a little bit extra time, extra cooking that had to be done. So I'm going to go off of how I think a lot of troops probably did it to save time in the trenches. Now, the other ingredients that we're going to need for this is some bacon, and then salt and pepper to taste, and it's highly recommended you also add some butter. I tried this on the stove a few times, and I think I got this kind of, narrowed down to a decent recipe here. So, move this stuff to the side. I already cut up a potato here. Now, the amount of potatoes you're going to need is either one large potato, two medium potatoes, or maybe 2 to 3 smaller potatoes. So I cut up 2 already. I got 1 left here. You guys should already know how to peel a potato. So that's why I figured you didn't need a review on that in the video. Just remember, before you start peeling your potatoes, wash them thoroughly. You don't want to contaminate your food with something from the soil that could potentially get you sick. Now, I know someone's being a smart ass right now and they're saying, well, where'd you get the potatoes? Well, you could have planted them yourselves, guerrilla gardening, and you harvested some. Maybe some were donated. Or potentially we had someone go out and acquire some for us through trading or purchasing. Now, after you got it peeled up, you're going to go through, cut it to no larger than 1/2 inch slices. Or close to it. And then we're going to cut it up into cubes or chunks. So that they will boil up decent here and cook. Now, according to the traditional German recipe, the potatoes are supposed to get cut into 1 inch by 1 inch chunks. Boil them till soft, and then they will get mashed up. But for right now, following the recipe, we're going to boil the potatoes till they are almost done, and then we are going to add our cubed up apple into the mix, or apples. I'm using 2 here. Now, while that's prepping, we're going to go through, we're going to peel and dice up our apples. If you don't want to peel it, you don't have to. Now I did a lot of looking around on this, and in Germany it's considered that the Granny Smith is the type of apple you're supposed to use, so a green apple, or at a minimum you want a tart apple. I made the mistake, tried this with a sweeter apple, it didn't taste as good. I got some Granny Smiths here and tried it, and I can understand why they recommend tart apples for this recipe. Remember, wash your apples off before cutting it up. Just like with the potatoes, you want roughly 1/2 inch chunks. I know some Himmel and Erde purists will flip out about me leaving the skins on. You're supposed to take the skins off if you're doing it as mashed potato. But like I said, I'm trying to do this like the soldier in the trench. He's going to do it the quickest way he can, because he's only got so much time before his next guard shift. Cook time on this, when I did it on my stove, was about 20 to 25 minutes. I just got to find the right setting on the stove, on this mini stove. But we're going to want to get it up to a boil. Boil till they lighten up. They're almost cooked through, but not fully. That's the point when we're going to add the apples to cook them the final couple minutes while cooking the potatoes. I'm making a bigger batch. If I was doing this just for myself, I'd probably only use 1 apple. But because I'm sharing it with Combat Cameraman, I'm using just a little bit extra potatoes and apples for the recipe here. It's always fun watching water boil. Takes forever. So I'm trying to fill the time while waiting for it to boil by doing other stuff, prepping the next part for the recipe. You add just enough water to the potatoes that they are submerged. According to the German recipes I came across, they said add only about 1 inch of water. But I tried that, and then it just got way too starchy. It would have been fine if I did it as mashed potatoes, but doing it this way, not so much. It really affected the taste. Now, the website that I got this off of, it was an article on the website that was something like the joy of trench cooking. You know, play on cookbooks in the United States and that stuff. They do not have a literal translation of the pamphlet in there. And they said because trying to translate it over to English didn't quite work, and the person that was doing the translation didn't speak German, so they couldn't catch it when the translation program was screwing up. Because the translation program will go off of the literal translation of the individual word. Where with foreign languages, especially with German, you have the literal translation, but it's not what's meant. So there's a lot of questions on a lot of those recipes. I will put the links in the description to the place I got the recipe from if you want to go through and look through the stuff yourself. But this one did take me a while to figure out what they were looking for, what they were talking about. The recipe on there said something like apples, potatoes, or potatoes, apples. And then you read through, the actual instructions were extremely minor. It said cook the potatoes and apples, fry bacon, add the bacon in, and eat, essentially is what the recipe was on the website. I had to look it up, and it took me a long time to figure out what specific recipe was being duplicated. And through that looking, I determined it was a traditional German recipe called Himmel und Erde. Now, this is an extremely popular recipe in Germany when it's done according to the mashed potatoes. And from what I was reading on it, people will literally get into fights over Himmel und Erde because there are purists in Germany about this one recipe is the only recipe, everything else is incorrect. And the problem is, they even admit in Germany, there's regional differences. You know, the people up in the mountains will do it one way, the people in the forest will do it another way, the people down on the coast will do it another way, the people along the Rhine or the Danube will do it a different way. Just slight variations. And those slight variations actually cause fights. One website I came across said that this is a recipe which you find at every church picnic, and it's not uncommon to see two grandmothers arguing and throwing fists over the recipe because their grandmother taught them it's supposed to be this way, not that way. Cook it just a little bit more, and then we'll toss in the apples, and then we will prep the bacon. But I'm going to cut open my package here. I have some box bacon from a store, just some cheaper stuff that we're going to use as our bacon for this. Remember, box bacon, depending on which it is, you can keep it inside your rucksack. It does not require refrigeration till really after opening, but just seal it inside a Ziploc bag, get all the air out, and it'll last a couple days, I think, before you might have some issues. Box bacon is already fully cooked, and it is heavily salted, and it is packed with a whole lot of grease or fat in here. So right now we have 3 small to medium-sized potatoes boiling. We got 2 smaller apples that are ready to go in. If you're doing this for yourself, you only really need the 1 apple. But as you know, I got to make some for Combat Cameraman because he's my guinea pig. I mean my taste tester. Remember your food scraps that you get from your peelings, cores, bone leftovers and all that stuff. Make sure to bury it and bury it deep enough that animals will not dig it up. I would not throw the food leftovers, the scraps, inside a field latrine, inside a toilet, because that will just increase the amount of bugs that will come in, and those bugs will transfer stuff to your food as you're eating and preparing it. Just looking over, see if I have any historical notes beyond the stuff I've given. There was one note that was a common theme through the different German websites I looked at for this recipe. The one thing that they said in there that is definitely considered unacceptable to every German is doing this the cheater's way by using mashed potato flakes as your potatoes and adding in applesauce. That, regardless of where you are in Germany, will get a beat down. But there are arguments over which type of potato to use, which type of apple to use. Do you add butter? Do you use bacon grease? You know, different things like that is what I came across when I was going to the different websites on this. I did look on YouTube for a while to see if I could find people having done this here in the West, and I found only like one person that did it. And when he did it as the mashed potatoes. Now, when I typed it in Himmel und Erde in the search, yes, I come across quite a few German websites or German channels that did do it with slight variations between each. So. Yeah, I want to cook these just a little bit softer before I put in the apples, because the apples can break down if you cook them too long. So I want to get these potatoes softened enough first. Oh, there we go. Now we're starting to get a boil. Good rapid boil in there. The German soldiers in World War I would have been using a mess kit similar to the one that I have, and I'm using my East German one. So we're definitely copying that part. I did not find a time listed on the different websites for how long to boil the potatoes. All of them basically just said cook till almost done. So we're going to cook these till it looks like they're starting to soften. And then we will toss in our apples. There we go. Now we're finally getting a decent boil on this old hot plate. I have been trying and trying for months now to get to this point on this thing. Now I think we'll add in our apples. Remember, I'm basically making a double batch here for me and Combat Cameraman. Yours will cover probably about half of what's in the mess kit right now when you do it for yourself. Now I have to prep the bacon and also fry the bacon. You'll need 2 to 3 pieces of bacon if you're doing this for yourself, or for doing a batch worth. So take our bacon here, and even if you're doing this with fresh bacon or fresher bacon, I recommend busting it up into pieces before frying. Now, because Combat Cameraman's here, I'm going to add an extra slice of bacon. So 2 to 3 slices of bacon. And that's the same if it's fresh or box bacon. So now, because there is not much fat in box bacon compared to regular when it cooks, I'm going to add just a little bit extra of my bacon butter, aka bacon grease, to this to help with the frying. So right now my focus should be over on the bacon, frying the bacon. You let the apple and potatoes fry up. Now the bacon, we're just going to crisp it up a bit. Now, according to the German recipe, actually in Germany, when doing this as mashed potatoes, we go through, cook the potatoes till they're almost done. Then we add in our peeled and diced up apples into there and cook them till they are done. They are thoroughly cooked. While that is going on, we take our bacon, we cut it into small strips or chunks, and we fry it up. We crisp it up, and then when it's the bacon is ready, you just pull it and set it to the side to wait. Which we'll say that's pretty close. So now I pulled off the bacon from my fire here, so to speak. Got it sitting and waiting while the apples and the potatoes finish up. We do not add any seasoning yet. That's coming up. So while it's cooking here, I'm mixing together the apples and potatoes as best I can. I liked, when I was experimenting with this, I liked leaving the skins on the apples when I was doing it chunked like this, so that I could tell, was I grabbing out pieces of apple, pieces of potato, or a bit of each. Help with a little bit of identification for me. This will not take very long when the apples are in. And while I'm waiting on that, I'm going to take a drink. The fastest I got this on my stove when I was experimenting, and I did this multiple times over the past couple weeks, fastest I got it down to was 20 to 25 minutes, but that was with a gas stove where, you know, it would start boiling as soon as you get the stuff right over that flame. You'll probably get similar results with doing this over a fire. Now my potatoes are starting to break down, so I'm going to say they are done. Now I'm going to drain off some excess fluids. Most of the fluids, actually. I'm going to use my glove for this. See, your tactical gloves can also work as pot holders. I found if I do not drain off the excess fluid, it got a little too starchy. Now, if you really want to, you can probably save the fluid. And, you know, drink it or use it in some other type of recipe. Whatever you so choose. But we got it drained. Now we pour in our bacon grease, bacon fat, and the bacon. And we're also going to add in some butter. Normally I'd say half this amount for a single person, but since Combat Cameraman's here, I'm going to add in the whole thing. Now I'm going to go through, I'm going to stir this, let the stuff melt the butter. As you can see, the potatoes are starting to mash up a bit. I just want to melt that butter good and spread that stuff out. Okay, I think we'll dish it up now. Yeah, I need my glove again. So got that in there. Now we go through, add salt and pepper to taste. I'll pass this off to Combat Cameraman. Let him do just a quick taste test and then see how much he wants to add for salt and pepper. There you go. As you see here, mine's more of the mashed right now. Doing my taste test while he does his. For me, it's a thumbs up, and Combat Cameraman's giving it a thumbs up also. So there you go, German apple potatoes, a modification of a traditional German recipe, Himmel und Erde, heaven and earth. Now, for all my engineer brothers and the Patriot Militia movements, always remember, Essayons.